The sun had set long ago and the old spaceport lay silent. Rusted metal walls groaned in the cold wind. Empty stalls and broken crates showed that no one had lived there for years. Only dust, silence, and shadows. Derek, a human trader, walked slowly through the ruins. He had landed his small ship nearby to rest and check his cargo. He thought this area was safe, but it felt strange now. Too quiet. He had just set down his pack and opened a sealed food box when he heard something. A quick shuffle behind him. He turned fast. No one, just a flicker of movement near the wall. "Hello?" he called out, voice firm. No answer. He looked back down and froze. One of his food packs was gone. His eyes scanned the ground. Tiny footprints, small, light, not human. Without thinking, Derek grabbed his flashlight and followed. The tracks led, between broken stalls and old shipping crates, then deeper into the ruins. The wind howled as he moved through the narrow paths. His boots crunched quietly on sand and broken glass. Every few seconds he caught a glimpse of something, a small figure slipping around corners, quick and silent like a shadow. He could have stopped, could have let it go. But something inside him, a strange worry, maybe even guilt, pushed him forward. After nearly 10 minutes, he spotted a broken hut made from old ship parts. A soft yellow light flickered inside. Derek stepped closer, carefully. He peeked through a crack. Inside, a small alien child, maybe 6 or 7 years old, sat on the floor. His skin was light purple, his body thin, almost bones. He wore only a torn cloth wrapped around his waist. His hands were shaking as he ripped open the food pack and shoved the pieces into his mouth. But he didn't eat all of it. He turned and walked over to someone lying on a pile of blankets. Derek's breath caught in his throat. It was a woman, also alien. Her skin looked dry and pale, and her eyes were shut. She wasn't moving. The boy kneeled beside her and fed her tiny bites, gently, carefully. Derek stepped back. He had seen enough. He had come expecting a thief. What he found was something else. He took a deep breath and stepped forward. The door creaked. The boy jumped, spun around, and froze. His eyes were wide with fear. "It's okay," Derek said softly, holding up his hands. "I'm not here to hurt you." The child said nothing. Derek slowly stepped inside the hut. "You took my food. I followed you, but now I understand." The boy backed up a little, placing his small body between Derek and the woman. "She's your mother?" Derek asked. The boy gave a slow, scared nod. "Is she sick?" Derek asked again. This time the child didn't nod. He just looked down, and tears began to fall from his eyes. Derek's heart ached. "I have more food," he said, kneeling down and opening his pack. "You can have it. I won't take anything back." He placed 2 more meal packs on the ground. The boy looked at them, then at his mother, still silent, still afraid. "I know you don't trust me," Derek said, "but I promise, I only want to help." For a moment, the boy didn't move. Then slowly, he walked forward, picked up one of the packs, and carried it to the woman. Derek watched as the child tried to lift her head and feed her. She was too weak. The food dropped from her mouth. "I can help," Derek said gently. The boy looked at him, just looked, then gave a tiny nod. Derek moved slowly. He sat beside the woman and helped her sit up. Her head rolled against his chest. She was burning with fever. "She needs water," Derek said, pulling out a bottle. He poured it into her mouth carefully. She coughed, then groaned softly. Her eyes opened, just a little, and when she saw Derek, her eyes filled with fear. "Please," she whispered, "don't hurt my son." "I'm not here to hurt him," Derek said softly. "Or you. I promise." Her eyes searched his face. She tried to say more, but her voice faded. She fell back into sleep. Derek looked at the boy. "She'll be okay," he said. "We'll help her, together." The boy didn't speak. But this time, he sat closer to Derek. The wind howled outside again, and Derek knew one thing for sure. This wasn't just a stolen meal. This was a cry for help, and he was the only one who answered it. Derek sat inside the small, broken shelter. The metal walls around him were full of holes, and the cold wind passed through them easily. But inside, the air felt heavy, not from the weather, but from sadness. The alien boy sat beside his weak mother. His tiny hands held a warm food packet. But he wasn't eating. He just stared at the human man with wide, silent eyes. Derek didn't speak. He didn't move fast. He knew fear when he saw it, and the child was full of it. He slowly opened his own pack, pulled out a heating pad, and placed it on the ground. It glowed gently with orange light. He pushed it toward them. "This will help her stay warm," he said softly. The boy looked down at the light. Then slowly he reached forward and pulled the heating pad close to his mother's side. She didn't move much. Her breath was weak. Her skin, once soft purple, was now pale gray. Derek had seen injuries before, but this was not just sickness. This was exhaustion, hunger, cold, and maybe loss. Derek spoke again, his voice low. "You don't talk much, do you?" No answer. "That's okay. You don't have to," he said, giving a small smile. The boy looked down. Then, after a long pause, he pointed at his mother. "She's hurt?" Derek asked. The boy shook his head. Then, "Sick?" Another small shake. "What happened to her?" Derek asked. This time the boy didn't move at all, but his tiny hands tightened around the food packet. Derek understood. Whatever had happened, it wasn't just illness. It was something darker. Something the child didn't want to remember. He didn't push. Instead, he pulled out a clean water bottle. "Let me help," he said gently. The boy hesitated, then nodded once. Derek moved closer to the mother. Carefully, he lifted her head and poured a little water into her mouth. She coughed again, but swallowed it. She opened her eyes for just a second. "You're human," she whispered, her voice dry as dust. "Yes," Derek said, "and I'm not your enemy." She gave the smallest of nods before slipping back into sleep. Derek sighed and looked around. The shelter was barely standing. Broken crates were stacked in the corners. Old metal sheets patched the roof. A single cracked screen blinked in the corner. Power from some tiny solar cell outside, but it wouldn't last. "You've been hiding here a long time, haven't you?" he said aloud. The boy gave a tiny nod. Derek looked at the child again, his face thin, cheeks hollow, eyes always watching. He had probably spent days without proper food or sleep, taking care of his mother, alone. Something inside Derek hurt. He stood and checked the entrance. He placed a few crates in front of the door to block the wind. Then he pulled out a soft blanket from his bag and handed it to the boy. The child didn't take it right away. He looked at it, then looked at Derek. "I won't take anything from you," Derek said. "This is yours now." Slowly, the boy reached out and accepted the blanket. He wrapped it around his mother's legs first, then covered her chest. Finally, he sat beside her and pulled the edge over himself too. "You're brave," Derek said quietly. "Very brave." The boy looked up. His lips moved slightly. Derek leaned in. "Did you say something?" The boy tried again. His voice was almost a whisper. "Ray?" Derek blinked. "Is that your name?" The child nodded. Derek smiled. "Nice to meet you, Ray. My name is Derek." The boy said nothing more, but he didn't look afraid now. Just tired. Deeply tired. Derek looked outside. Night was falling quickly. The wind had picked up. Dust swirled in the dark skies. "This shelter won't hold if a full storm comes," Derek muttered. "You'll freeze out here." He looked at Ray. "I have a small ship not far from here. I can take you and your mother. I have medicine, heat, food." Ray looked at his mother. "She can't walk," Derek added. "I'll carry her, but only if you trust me." Ray didn't answer, but he looked back at Derek for a long moment. And then, he nodded. That one small nod was louder than any words. Derek stood and rolled up his blanket. "Get your things," he said. "We leave before the wind gets worse." Ray picked up a single broken cup and an old picture. That was all. No bags, no clothes, just memories. As Derek lifted the alien woman in his arms, her eyes opened again. She whispered one word, "Safe." And for the first time, Derek felt the weight of something more than a rescue. This wasn't just saving strangers, this was the beginning of something bigger. The wind outside screamed like a wild beast. Dust and sand hit the broken metal walls of the shelter as Derek carried the alien woman in his arms. Her body was so light, he worried she might break if he held her too tightly. Her skin felt cold. Too cold. The small alien boy, Ray, followed close behind. He didn't speak. His big quiet eyes stayed fixed on his mother. Derek stepped carefully, avoiding sharp metal and broken ground as they left the shelter. The air was thick with sand, the sky almost dark. His ship was parked behind a rusted hill, only a few minutes away, but in this storm every step felt slower, harder. "Just hang on," Derek whispered to the woman in his arms. "We're almost there." She didn't respond. Ray stumbled once but didn't cry. He stood up and kept walking, holding tightly to the blanket Derek had given him. His small feet sank into the soft dust, but he stayed close, never more than 2 steps away from his mother. Finally, they reached the ship. Derek punched the code. The hatch opened with a hiss. Warm air greeted them. Inside, soft lights blinked. It wasn't fancy, just an old cargo ship with a small sleeping area and a storage room, but right now it felt like heaven. He gently placed the woman on the small bed and turned to Ray. "Sit here," he said, pointing to a nearby seat. "You're safe now." The boy sat down, still holding the picture he had taken from the shelter. Derek quickly grabbed his medkit. It wasn't made for aliens, but he had helped enough off-worlders before. He scanned the mother's body. Her heart was slow but steady. Her temperature was low, muscles weak, dehydrated, no wounds, no disease. "She's not dying," Derek said to himself. "She's just forgotten." He injected her with some basic fluids and pain relievers. Then he placed warm pads around her chest and shoulders. Slowly her color returned and then her eyes opened. She blinked once, twice. Her lips parted. Her voice came out like dry leaves in the wind. "Where am I?" Derek leaned in. "You're safe. My name's Derek. I found your boy. He brought me to you." Her eyes moved weakly. She saw Ray sitting nearby, clutching the blanket. Tears filled her eyes. "Ray," she whispered. The boy rushed forward and held her hand. "Mama." His voice was small, shaking. The woman smiled, even though it hurt. "I thought I wouldn't see you again." Derek stepped back to give them space, but then her tired eyes looked at him. "You're human," she said softly. "Yes," Derek replied. Her voice grew tense. "Why help us?" Derek paused, then said, "Because no one else did." That made her eyes fill again. She closed them tight, trying not to cry. "You could have taken the food back, or left us." "I almost did," Derek said honestly. "But then I saw Ray feeding you first before himself. He didn't steal for himself, he stole for his mother. That's not a thief, that's family." She looked at her son and then back at Derek. "You're different," she whispered. "Humans. Most don't care." "I care," he said. "Even if no one else does." She took a deep breath. "My name is Shira." Derek nodded. "Nice to meet you, Shira." Shira looked down. Her voice was barely there. "They abandoned us. My people. After the bombing. They left the weak behind. I couldn't walk. My child was too young to carry me. We hid in that shelter until the food ran out. I told him to stay hidden. I told him not to go out." Derek looked at Ray. The boy lowered his head, ashamed. You did nothing wrong, Derek said gently. You saved your mother. Ray looked up at him, eyes wide, full of emotion. Shira touched her son's cheek with shaky fingers. I'm sorry, she whispered. I wasn't strong enough. You're still here, Derek said. That's strong enough. Silence filled the ship for a moment. Soft, warm silence. Shira closed her eyes. She was still weak, but something inside her had changed. She wasn't afraid now. And Ray was no longer trembling. Derek walked to the front of the ship and checked the outside sensors. The storm was growing worse. No one would be traveling tonight. No patrols, no ships. They were alone. But maybe that was a good thing. He turned back to look at them, a starving boy, a sick mother, a quiet ship in the middle of nowhere. And somehow, it felt right. Like maybe this was meant to happen. Maybe this was where things began again. The sky outside was no longer dark, it was angry. Thick clouds rolled across the planet's surface like waves. Lightning flashed in the distance. Dust swirled in choking winds, covering everything in a gray storm that never seemed to end. Inside Derek's ship, the world was quiet. Warm. Safe. For now Shira lay asleep on the small cot, her face a little more alive now, her skin no longer ghostly pale. Ray sat beside her, his small hand never leaving hers. He didn't talk, but his eyes stayed open. He was watching, listening, waiting. Derek stood at the ship's control panel, frowning. The screen blinked with warning signs. Sandstorm class. 4 inbound estimated duration. 12 hours, surface visibility. Near zero, he ran a scan of nearby areas. Nothing but empty land, broken ruins, and silence. No rescue teams, he muttered. No patrols, just ghosts and dust. He walked back toward Ray and kneeled beside him. We're going to stay inside for a while, he said gently. The storm outside is getting worse. Ray looked at him. Will it break the ship? No, Derek replied with a small smile. She's tough, she's been through worse. Ray nodded. He then looked back at his mother. She needs real help. Derek lowered his eyes. Yes, she does. Shira needed medical care. Real care. Her body had held on through starvation and cold, but without medicine, food, and time she would never fully recover. Derek stood up again and looked at the map. His ship was too old to fly in a storm this strong. If he tried to launch now, they might crash. But if he waited too long, he heard a soft sound behind him. Shira's voice, low and rough. Don't risk yourself, she said. He turned. She was awake now. Barely. I heard you, she whispered. Talking to Ray. You need help, Derek said. And we'll get it. You don't even know me, she whispered. I don't have to, he said. I just know you're a mother. And your son loves you. That's enough for me. Shira closed her eyes. A tear rolled down her cheek. Derek walked over and gave her more water. You're safe here for now, he said. But when the storm ends, I'll take you to a medical outpost. Shira opened her mouth, then closed it again. She didn't have the strength to argue. She was used to being left behind, not saved. As the storm roared outside, Derek made a meal. Simple, warm food, enough for 3. He handed bowls to both Ray and Shira. Ray ate slowly, watching his mother with every bite. Shira took only a little. He needs it more, she whispered. He'll be stronger if you are, Derek answered. She smiled faintly and ate a few more bites. Later that night, while Shira slept again, Ray sat with Derek near the control panel. The boy finally broke his silence. My father is gone. Derek didn't say anything. He just waited. He died in the attack, Ray continued, voice flat. The sky turned red. The buildings fell. I was hiding under a metal sheet. My mother was screaming for me. Derek looked at him with soft eyes. She couldn't walk after that, Ray said. Her legs, something hit them, and the others. They said she was too slow. They left us. Ray's fists tightened. They left us to die. Derek stayed quiet for a moment. Then he said, "But you didn't die." Ray looked at him. "You kept her alive," Derek added. "You kept going when everyone else gave up. That makes you the bravest person I've met." Ray's eyes watered. "I was so scared." "I know," Derek said, "but you still did what had to be done. That's what heroes do." Ray wiped his eyes and gave the smallest smile. Outside, the storm screamed louder than before. Dust slammed into the ship's hull. The metal groaned. Derek checked the systems again. The shields were holding, but just barely. If the storm grew stronger, the power might not last the night. Suddenly, a loud thud hit the back of the ship. Derek jumped up. Another bang, then another. Ray ran to his mother. Derek pulled a tool from the wall and slowly moved to the back hatch. He pressed a button to activate the rear camera. Shadows. 3 figures outside. Tall. Thin. Moving oddly. Not human. Not friendly. He leaned close to the speaker. "System, who's out there?" No answer. The camera flashed again and one of the figures turned. Sharp limbs. Masked face. Not survivors. Scavengers. Derek swore under his breath. Of course. The storm pushed them this way. He turned back to Ray and Shira. "They're trying to get in," he said quickly. "We have to stay quiet. Do not open anything." Shira, half awake, nodded. Ray grabbed her hand. Derek dimmed the lights and locked every door. The storm had come, but it wasn't alone. Now, survival meant more than just food and medicine. Now it meant defending this fragile little family from monsters outside. Third storm screamed like 1,000 angry voices outside Derek's ship. Dust slammed into the hull. The walls shook, but the ship held strong. For now. Inside, the lights were off. Only the soft glow from the control panel lit the room. Derek crouched near the back door, his hand gripping a long metal tool. His eyes watched the screen showing the shadows outside. They weren't shadows anymore. They were real. 3 tall figures moved slowly around the ship. Thin bodies, sharp limbs. Their skin looked like cracked stone. Their eyes, glowing red in the storm. Scavengers. They weren't here to help. They smelled weakness. They hunted the sick, the lost, the left behind. They were not kind. They were not merciful. Ray sat quietly beside his mother, holding her hand tightly. Shira was awake now, barely. Her voice trembled. "Well, who are they?" Derek didn't look back. "Scavengers," he said. "They survive by taking from the dying. Sometimes they help you just enough to sell you later." Shira's face went pale. "They'll take Ray." "Not while I'm here," Derek said firmly. Another loud bang shook the ship. "They're testing the walls," he whispered. "Looking for weak points." Ray's voice was small. "Will they break in?" Derek hesitated. "Not if we scare them." Shira looked up at him. "We're barely alive. What do we have that's scary?" Derek smiled. "Humans are good at bluffing." He got up and quickly moved to a hidden storage panel. Inside, he found 2 flash grenades and a distress flare. Not weapons, but they could blind and confuse, maybe long enough to scare the scavengers off. He handed Ray the flare. "Hold this tight. Don't light it until I say." The boy nodded. Then Derek grabbed a speaker unit from the wall and clicked a few buttons. His voice would now come from outside the ship's hull. He cleared his throat and spoke like a soldier. "This is Captain of Terran Rescue Team 7. You are trespassing on a protected civilian recovery zone. Leave now or face armed response." He paused. Silence. Then, a hiss from outside. The scavengers weren't moving. He continued. "Backup is already on the way. Airstrike confirmed in 6 minutes. Leave now and survive." He switched off the speaker. Inside, Shira looked at him. "Was that real?" Derek smiled. No, but it doesn't have to be. They don't know who's inside. Another pause. Then, movement. One of the scavengers backed away from the door. Another climbed onto the roof. Derek cursed under his breath. They're trying to get in from the top, he said. Ray, with me. Shira, stay hidden. Shira grabbed his hand weakly. Don't let them take him. Derek nodded. I won't. He and Ray climbed into the top cargo hatch. The wind howled around them as Derek unlocked the emergency ceiling door. Just a little. Just enough to see. There, the scavenger's arm, long and thin, trying to tear open the vent. Derek tossed the flash grenade through the opening. Boom! A blast of white light lit up the storm. The creature screamed and fell backward off the ship. Derek shut the hatch and locked it again. That'll blind them for a while, he said. But they won't give up yet. He turned to Ray. It's your turn. Ray blinked. Mine? Derek nodded. You're small. Fast. I need you to crawl through the lower vent and light this flare outside the ship, away from us. Make it look like reinforcements are arriving. Then run back fast. Can you do that? The boy looked scared. But then he looked at his mother. He nodded. I'll do it. Derek smiled. You're braver than most soldiers I know. Moments later, Ray crawled through the vent, hugging the flare. Derek watched on the monitor as the boy slid out and dashed across the sand. The storm nearly covered him, but then a bright red light lit up the dust. The scavengers turned, hissing. The light made it look like something big was coming. Ray turned and sprinted back. The scavengers paused. Then, they fled. All three. Gone into the storm. Derek opened the lower hatch and pulled Ray back in. The boy was coughing from the dust but smiling. You did it, Derek said, hugging him tight. You really did it. Back inside, Shira looked up with teary eyes. Is he okay? Derek nodded. He's more than okay. He saved us. Ray rushed back to her and held her hand. They're gone, Mama. I did it. Shira pulled him close. My brave little star. The storm still roared outside, but inside the ship there was peace. For now, they were still stranded, still far from help. But they were together, and they had hope. And sometimes, hope is more powerful than any weapon. The storm outside had started to slow. The heavy roar faded into a low hum, and the dust that once danced in the sky now drifted down like gray snow. Derek watched the weather screen. The worst had passed, but the silence that followed felt heavier than the storm. Inside the ship, Ray sat beside his mother, his head resting against her arm. Shira slept deeply, her chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm. It was the first time in days she had real rest. Derek checked the ship's power system. They had just enough left to warm the ship, run a few scans, and send one emergency signal. But no one was answering yet. No patrol ships, no rescue beacons, no help. He sighed and leaned back in the chair. His muscles ached and his eyes burned from lack of sleep. But he wasn't ready to stop. He looked toward Ray. The boy was awake now, quietly watching him. You okay? Derek asked. Ray nodded slowly. Tired, but okay. Derek smiled. You did something brave back there, real brave. Ray looked down. I was scared. Everyone's scared, Derek said. Brave people just keep going anyway. There was a pause. Then for the first time, Ray asked, Why did you help us? Derek blinked. The question was soft, but it hit deep. He sat forward. Because I saw you. In the middle of all that dust and silence, I saw you trying to protect your mother. You reminded me of someone I once knew. Who? Ray asked. Derek took a deep breath. My sister. Ray listened closely. She died a long time ago. Derek said. War took her. She was young, like you. And no one helped. I couldn't stop it then. But I can now. Ray didn't speak. But something changed in his eyes. It was like a wall inside him. Finally broke. His lips trembled. Then, his voice cracked. She wouldn't wake up. Ray whispered, tears falling. I thought she was gone. I didn't know what to do. I just kept trying. I gave her my food. I covered her at night. I talked to her when she couldn't hear me. Derek moved closer and put a gentle hand on the boy's shoulder. You did everything right, he said. You kept her alive. Ray wiped his tears, but his voice shook. I thought I was alone. I thought no one would ever come. Derek smiled gently. But someone did. Ray looked up. You. Just then, a small beep sounded from the control panel. Derek stood fast and checked the screen. A faint signal. Weak, but real. He boosted it. Incoming communication detected origin. Civilian medical station. Sector 7. Message. Unidentified vessel. Your emergency ping was received. Respond if in need of assistance. Derek quickly pressed the reply button. This is Pilot Derek Grayson of the vessel Vulture. I'm carrying 2 survivors, 1 adult female alien, 1 minor. Both need medical help, requesting immediate support. The reply came quickly. Coordinates locked. Sending drone evac now. ETA, 4 hours. Hold position. Derek slumped back into his chair. Relief hit him like a wave. They were no longer alone. He turned to Ray. Help is coming. The boy's eyes widened. Really? Derek nodded. 4 hours. That's all we have to wait. Ray jumped up and rushed to his mother. Mama, they're coming. Shira stirred. Her eyes opened slowly. Who's coming? Rescue, Derek said, walking over. A drone team from the medical station. Tears welled up in her eyes. You really called for help. I told you I would, Derek said. You're not forgotten. She reached out and held his hand. You saved us. Derek shook his head. You saved each other. I just answered the call. Shira smiled faintly. Not many humans would do what you did. Maybe, Derek replied. But maybe more will, if they hear stories like yours. She nodded slowly. Then, her voice faded into a whisper. Stay with us until they come. I'm not going anywhere, Derek said. The hours passed slowly, but peacefully. They shared a warm meal together. Derek told stories of his travels. Ray laughed for the first time. Shira spoke more, her voice gaining strength. They weren't just survivors anymore, they were a family in the making. Then, just as the sky began to clear, a soft humming sound filled the air outside. Derek stood and opened the ship's top view screen. A sleek rescue drone hovered in the east sky, scanning the ship ready to land. They're here, he said. Ray jumped to his feet, holding his mother's hand. Shira smiled, eyes full of tears. After so many days of silence, hunger, and fear, the voice that mattered had finally been heard, and it answered. The rescue drone landed with a gentle hum, its lights glowing soft yellow. For a long time, no one moved. It didn't feel real. Not after everything they had been through, but there it was, help, finally here. Derek stepped outside first, holding one hand in the air to signal peace. The air was cleaner now. The storm had left behind silence and a pale orange sky. Dust still clung to his boots, but the ground felt solid, safe. The drone scanned him quickly, then spoke in a calm, robotic voice. Medical evac confirmed. 2 life forms detected, 1 adult, 1 minor. Prepare for transfer. Derek turned to the ship and nodded. Ray appeared at the door, holding tightly to his mother's hand. Shira leaned on her son in the wall, her legs still weak, but her eyes were steady. Her head was high. She was not broken anymore. Derek rushed over and helped her down the small ramp. Ray held on to her the entire way, like her strength was also his. When they reached the drone, a side panel opened, revealing 2 soft beds and a gentle lift. Shira paused. She looked up at Derek. You're not coming? She asked, voice low. Derek gave a small smile. It's your turn now. You need the care. I'm just the man who opened a door. Ray shook his head. No, you didn't just open a door. You saved our lives. Shira looked at him. This strange human who could have walked away, but didn't. She reached into her old torn cloth and pulled out something small. A shiny blue stone, no bigger than a coin. It shimmered in the sunlight. This was given to me by my husband before the attack, she said. He told me it would bring safety in the darkest times. She held it out to Derek. He stepped back. Shira, I can't take that. You must, she said firmly. You brought light when we had none. My husband is gone, but his words weren't wrong. You were our safety. Ray stepped forward and placed the stone in Derek's hand. Now you carry it, and if you're ever lost, remember us. Derek stared at the stone, then at the boy's hopeful face. I'll keep it safe, he promised. Just like I kept you. As Shira and Ray were lifted into the drone, Derek took one last look at them. Their clothes were still worn, their faces still tired, but they were alive, together, whole. The drone's doors closed, and it rose into the air with a soft hum. Ray waved through the window. Derek raised a hand and smiled. Then they were gone, heading toward a future that once seemed impossible. Derek walked back into his ship, but it felt different now. Not empty, not lonely. The small blanket Ray had used still lay on the floor. A faint scent of warm food still filled the air, and on the cot something else, a tiny drawing made with black dust on scrap paper. 3 figures, a woman, a child, and a man with messy hair, all holding hands. Above them the words, "Thank you, Derek." He picked it up slowly, and for the first time in years, he cried. Not from pain, but from something warmer, something new. Weeks later, on a distant outpost planet, a medic filed a report. Shira, female alien survivor, malnourished, recovering well. Child, Ray, speech returning, behavior stable. Notes, both insist on sending messages to the human named Derek Grayson. One message read simply, "We have a home now. You gave it to us. You will always be part of our family." Back on his ship, Derek looked at the stars through the main window. The blue stone hung around his neck on a chain he made from wire and string. Every time the light hit it, it glowed softly. He didn't rescue the universe. He didn't fight a great war. But he had saved 2 souls that the world had forgotten, and in that moment, that was enough. Because sometimes the strongest heroes are not the ones with weapons, but the ones who stop, listen, and choose to care.